Is there something about this time where even like World War III, which has been throwing around very casually, concerningly so, even that the news cycle wipes that away?
Yeah. Well, I think we have this general problem that we can't make s- certain information, even you know, unequivocally certain information, emotionally salient. Like we respond quite readily to certain things. I mean, as we talked about, we respond to the little girl who fell down a well. I mean, that gets 100% of our emotional resources. But the abstract probability of nuclear war, right? Even a high probability, even an intolerable probability, even if we put it at 30%, right? Like it's just like that's Russian roulette with a gun with three chambers, and it's aimed at the heads, not only your head but your kid's head and everyone's kid's head, and it's just 24 hours a day. And um, I mean, I think people who have, this pre-Ukraine, I think the people who have made it their business to professionally to think about the risk of nuclear war and to mitigate it, people like Graham Allison or William Perry, or I mean, I think they were putting like the the ongoing risk. I mean, just the risk that we're going to have a proper nuclear war at some point in the next generation. People were putting it at something like 50%, right? That we're living with this sword of Damocles over our heads. Now, you might wonder whether anyone can have reliable intuitions about the probability of that kind of thing, but the status quo is truly alarming. I mean, you know, we've got ICBMs on. I mean, leave aside smaller exchanges and tactical nukes and how we could have a world war, based on incremental changes. We've got the biggest bombs aimed at the biggest cities in both directions, and it's old technology, right? And it's vulnerable to some lunatic deciding to launch or misreading bad data. And we know we've been saved from nuclear war. Um, I think at least twice by you know Soviet submarine commanders deciding I'm not going to pass this up the chain of command. Right? It's like this is almost certainly an error, and it turns out it was an error. And it's and we need people to. I mean, in that particular case, like he saw, I think it was what seemed like five missiles launched from the U.S. to Russia, and he reasoned if America was going to engage in a first strike, they'd launch more than five missiles, right? So this has to be fictional, and then he waited long enough to decide that it was fictional. But the probability of a nuclear war happening by mistake or some other species of inadvertence, misunderstanding, technical malfunction, that's intolerable. Forget about the intentional use of it by people who are, you know, driven crazy by some ideology.
And more technologies are enable a kind of scale of destruction.
And misinformation plays into this picture in a way that is especially scary. I mean, once you can get a deep fake of, any current president of the United States claiming to have launched a first strike, and just, send that everywhere.
But that could change the nature of truth, and then that might change the engine we have for skepticism. Sharpen it. The more you have
Yeah,
deep
and then we might
fakes.
have AI and digital watermarks that help us. I mean, maybe we'll not trust any information that hasn't come through uh, specific channels, right? I mean, so like in my world, it's like I no longer feel the need to respond to anything other than what I put out in my channels of information. It's like there's so many people who have clipped stuff of me that shows the opposite of what I was actually saying in context.
Yeah.
I mean, the people have like re-edited my podcast audio to make it seem like I said the opposite of what I was saying. It's like, unless I put it out, you can't be sure that I actually said it. I mean, it's just. But I don't know what it's like to live like that for all forms of information. And I mean, strangely, I think it may require a greater siloing of information in the end. It's like it's we're living through this sort of Wild West period where everyone's got a newsletter and everyone's got a blog and everyone's got an opinion. But once you can fake everything,
There might be a greater value for expertise
yeah,
for experts, but a more rigorous system for identifying who the experts are.
yeah, or
Maybe.
just knowing that it's going to be an arms race to authenticate information. So it's like if you can never trust a photograph
Yeah.
unless it has been vetted by Getty Images, because only Getty Images has the resources to authenticate the provenance of that photograph and attest that it hasn't been meddled with by AI. And again, I don't even know if that's technically possible. I mean, maybe whatever the tools available for this will be, commodified, and the cost will be driven to zero so quickly that everyone will be able to do it. It could be like encryption, but
And it would be proven and tested most effectively first, of course, as always, in porn,
yeah, right.
which is where most of human innovation technology happens first.